Now, some estimates say that we're going to be facing $1 billion deficit. Irrespective of the number, it's way up there. And a lot of people are saying, okay, you've been up in Augusta. What happened? Why is spending out of control? Why are we facing this fiscal problem? And what will you do if reelected to help solve it?
One of the things that you have to realize is that Maine has to have a balanced budget. So we're not running a deficit budget. What we have to do in the next budget is make sure that it's balanced. If you look in the context of what's happening in the economy, in 2007, the Dow Industrial Average was over 14,000 points. It dropped down to 6,500 points. Oil went from $33 a barrel up to $147. Maine is actually in a much better position than many of the 50 other states that we have. That doesn't mean that a lot of changes can't be made. I've pushed for a lot of changes in Augusta. I've pushed to restructure the form of government there, to save $15 million to do a unicameral legislature. I was one that was written up in the newspapers from here to Ellsworth, all over the state. I had the foresight in 2008 to make a very controversial vote to not add another $200 million to our unfunded liability. I came back the next session. I lost a very powerful position on the appropriations because I went against leadership. I didn't do the easy thing just to appease everybody. I made a very controversial vote and lost a position, but I did the right thing for the citizens of the state of Maine. And when we came back, then everything fell apart with the economy and the recession. And people realized that we need people that can look forward and try and predict on what things are happening.
Even with that being said, 1 out of 9 Mainers are unemployed. What would you say to a voter in Saco that may have supported you in past elections, but they're unemployed right now? They don't have a job, and they feel very frustrated with Augusta. You said that you made a lot of savings, but what did you specifically do for Saco residents in terms of trying to keep them from losing their jobs?
Well, as far as specifically for Saco residents, it's not just Saco residents, it's all the residents in the state of Maine. What we did is we passed one of the things on insurance reform bills, a mini COBRA plan, so that now if somebody is permanently laid off from work, that they are able to stay on to their employers, their former employer's insurance plan, as long as they pay for it. Insurance is one of the #1 issues on everybody's mind. When you lose a job, you're wondering what's going to happen if I get sick. By establishing this legislation, that takes care and puts a little bit of ease on somebody's mind on it. When Wood Structures closed its plant, I was down in Saco at City Hall with the Department of Labor, organizing, trying to find out what we could do to help put these workers back. I put in legislation for allowing workers comp and unemployment benefits to help the workers at Wood Structures. But it would not only help Wood Structure, it would help all the workers in the state of Maine. We're in a recession. People have to realize that we are in a recession. We're trying everything we can to dig our way out, but I do not feel that the way to dig our way out is simply to throw more money at the problem. The state of Maine has a budget, and we have to balance that budget because that budget really affects everybody in the state of Maine. We have to work on trying to attract new businesses to the state of Maine, and as a member of the Taxation Committee, that's what I've been trying to do.
Let's talk about tax reform since you were a member of the tax committee. What can we do? Because the last time a tax referendum went through, people voted it down in terms of raising the sales tax and lowering the income tax. You supported that initiative, I believe. What do you see moving forward is a necessity in terms of tax reform, seeing that people voted that down?
Well, I think the main thing is not to feel that they voted it down, it's over. They voted it down, they didn't like the plan that came out, and we've heard them. Now it's time to roll up our sleeves, go back to Augusta, and work on something that the voters will approve of. Simply because they didn't like one plan doesn't mean that we should give up. Maine desperately needs tax reform. We need to lower that income tax rate. That was the reason that I supported the tax reform, because it brought the rate down from 8.5%, which was one of the highest in the United States, down to 6.5%, which was in the middle of the pack. And it's been proven in report after report after report in order to entice companies to move into the state, we need to reduce that income tax rate. And that, I feel, would have been one of the best things we could have done to help promote jobs and create jobs in the state of Maine if it had gone. I think the tax reform package was very broad, very complicated, and a lot of people wanted part of it, but they didn't want all of it. It's our job now to go back and salvage the best parts of it and work it and do it again.
Well, part of the part that a lot of people had trouble with was the increase in a lot of the sales taxes. Would you support an initiative that would simply just say, look, we're going to lower the income tax and not raise any new taxes, just lower the income tax? Would you support something like that?
Hypothetical questions are so outrageous because you never know until you see the actual wording of a bill on it. If we were going to lower the income tax and take $100 or $200 million out of the budget, would I vote for it? I'd have to see where the money is coming from. What are we going to cut for those other services, and where are they going to be cut? Are they going to be all in education? Are they going to be spread out across the board? So I think it's a matter, and again, coming back to my reputation, I read a bill. I understand the wording in the bill, and I look at the fiscal note on the bill. So to simply say, as a campaign promise, I'm going to reduce taxes to 4.5%, anybody can say that, but I'm a person who puts my money where my mouth is, and I can't promise the public something just to get elected until I actually see where that money is going to come from.
Do you see that there are major reforms needed in terms of each of the levels of state government, in terms of the departments, in terms of trying to have cost-cutting initiatives up in Augusta, whether it be education or health and human services? Do you see a specific area that needs a little red pen and go through line by line and find the inefficiencies to save people money?
We've had so many task force. When I was on the appropriation, we had the citizens initiatives on efficiency to streamline $10 million, $20 million. We had a lot of different suggestions. We had weeks of public hearings with citizens coming up, just an open mic. Anybody could come up and give us suggestions on that. We've gone through that. I think you need to think broader than simply just taking a red line to certain items. You need to look at entire departments, entire budgets. There's been a lot of talk about the Department of Economic and Community Development. There's a lot of different programs out there that independent organizations are doing to bring people into the state of Maine. That's something that we need to take a look at and look at the entire program. We've tried to do that with the Race to the Top on the education program. We were not successful because I don't think we did the best job that we could have on reforming the education the way that the present administration in Washington wants us to do. We put in kind of a halfway application, I feel, and we deserve not to get the money because we didn't do as much as we could have. I pushed for stronger reforms so that we would have complied with Race to the Top. My colleagues did not support that.